Freedom lies within, but how to get there? Hello to all of you. Welcome to this recorded talk hosted by the School of the Golden Rosy Cross. My name is Joost Drenthe from the Netherlands, and I have elected not to give an explanatory lecture about the philosophy of the Rosy Cross, but have chosen as the core for this talk a tale by George MacDonald, a Scottish enlightened minister from around 1900, a friend of Mark Twain, by the way, and a role model for C.S. Lewis of the famous Narnia tales. The tale is of a beautiful symbolism which we shall go into after I've given you the story. But overall, it is aimed at those of us who often feel, we could say, spiritually imprisoned on the horizontal level and who long for the upward path, who sometimes hear a voice inside saying something like, "Stop the world, I want to get off," or "How can I do something for the world and humanity at an essential level? How can I make a difference?" And if you are familiar with this feeling, you may have wondered, what is this feeling? What is this voice inside me? Well, it is certainly not the I personality, the ego part of our being, for that part is mostly concerned with feathering its nest and protecting it. It is the voice of the spirit spark, the declaration of the divine flame that every human being carries in his heart, that has awoken and demands our attention. This spirit spark, this jewel in the lotus, as Buddha called it, is the last remnant in our system of the divine spirit being, the cosmic energy being we once were before our fall from paradise. It lies imprisoned in us, and it yearns for the freedom it had once as a cosmic entity. And as such, this spirit spark is also the seed from which that being can once again grow within us if we dedicate it our attention and will switch from the ego way to the soul's way. So indeed, freedom, real freedom, cosmic freedom lies within us. And the well-known story of the prodigal son applies directly to us when he speaks, "Here I am, starving to death spiritually. I will set out and go back to my father's house." So, listen to the story and discover what is necessary to go what is termed the way, the path of the inner development from ego to soul to spirit. The prisoner. An orphaned boy living with a wise man awoke and found himself alone in the middle of the night. He could not get to sleep again, and his heart grew so restless that he rose and went down the stairs. The moon shone in at every window, and his way was now in glimmer, now in gloom. And on the first landing he saw a door wide open which he had never seen unlocked until now. It was the door to the wizard's room. And within all was bright with moonlight, and the boy first peeped, then stepped in and peered timidly about him. The farther end of the room was hidden by a curtain stretched quite across it, and curious to see what was behind it, he approached it. But before he reached it, the curtain slowly divided in the middle and, drawn back to each side, revealed a place with just light enough in it from the moonshine to show that it was a dungeon. And in the middle of the dungeon, upon the floor, sat a prisoner, with fetters to his feet, manacles to his hand, and a collar, an iron collar around his neck, and a chain from the collar had its last link in an iron staple fixed in the stone floor. His head was sunk onto his chest, and he sat abject and despairing. What a wicked man he must be, thought the boy, and was turning to run away in terror when the man lifted his head and his look caught and held him. And he saw a pale, worn, fierce countenance, which somehow, through all the added years and all the dirt that defiled it, he recognized as his own. For a moment the prisoner gazed at him mournfully, and then a wild passion of rage and despair seized him. He dragged and tore at his chains, raved and shrieked, and dashed himself to the ground like one fed up with his imprisonment. For a time he lay exhausted, and then he half rose, and sat as before, gazing helplessly upon the ground. By and by, a spider came creeping along the bar of his fetters. He put out his hand, and with the manacle on his wrist, crushed it, and smiled. Instantly, through the gloom, came a strong, clear, yet strangely sweet voice, and the very sweetness had in it something that made the boy think of fire. And the voice said, "So, in the midst of your misery, you take delight in the destruction of other things? Is it not well that you are chained? If you were free, you would, in time, destroy the world. Tame your wild beast, or sit there until I tame it." The prisoner peered and stared through the dusk, but could see no one, and he fell into another fit of furious raving, but not a hairbreadth would one link of chain yield to his wildest endeavor. "Oh, mother!" he cried, and he sank again into his pit of despair and exhaustion. "Your mother is gone from you," said the voice. "Outworn by your evil ways, you chose to turn only to yourself and not to your mother. And now you have only yourself, and she is gone. I only am left here to care for you, not with her caresses and sweet words, but in your self-made dungeon. Unawares to yourself, you have forged your own chains, and have riveted them upon yourself. Not even Hercules could free you from such imprisonment." The man burst out in tears and cried, "What then am I to do? For the burden of them is intolerable." "That I will tell you," said the voice. "For only in that way will your chains fall from you." "I will undertake it," said the man. "Your prison is foul," said the voice. "It is," said the man. "Cleanse it then." "How can I cleanse it when I cannot move?" "Cannot move? Your hands were upon your face just a moment ago, and now they are upon the floor. Near one of your hands lies a dead mouse. Yonder is an open window. Cast the dead thing out into the furnace of life. And with a sudden, obedient resolve, the prisoner made the endeavor to reach it. The chain pulled the collar hard, and the manacle wrenched his wrist, but he caught the dead thing by the tail and, with a fierce effort, threw it out. Out of the window it flew, and the air of his dungeon seemed suddenly clearer. After a period of silence, the voice came again. Behind you lies a broom. Reach forth and take it and sweep around you, as far as your chains will give you scope. The man obeyed, and as he swept, with every sweep, with every stroke, he reached farther. And at length, how it came about he could not tell, for his chains still hung heavily upon him. He found himself sweeping the very foot of the walls. And a moment more, and he stood at the open window, looking out into the world outside his prison. Then a dove flew in. It perched upon the window-sill and walked enquiringly in. He caught it in his hands, and he looked how to close the window so that he might have it for company. Then came the voice again, "Will you, a prisoner, make of yourself a jailer too?" He opened his hands, and the dove fluttered and flashed for a moment like a bird of light, and then it re-entered and flew into his outstretched hands. He stroked it, and the bird went and came freely and was his companion. Still, his chains hung about him, and he sighed and groaned under their weight. "Set yourself down," said the voice, "and polish your irons." He obeyed, rubbing link against link, busily with his hands. And thus he labored, it seemed like the boy in a vision, day after day, until at last every part within his reach, of fetter, of chain, of collar, glittered with brightness. "Go to the window now," said the voice, "and lay yourself down in the sunshine." He went, lay down, and went to sleep. And when he awoke, he began to raise himself heavily again. But the glorious sun from outside his prison had melted all the burnished parts of his bonds, and the rest dropped from him as he sprang to his feet. For very joy of his lightness, he ran about the room like a frolicking child. Then said the voice once more, "Now carve out of the wall the figure of a man, as perfect as you can think it and make it." "Alas," said the prisoner to himself, "I do not know how to carve or fashion the image of anything." But even as he said this, he turned to find among the fetters, the fragments of his fetters, what piece of iron might best serve him for a chisel. "To work," he said, and many and weary were the hours he wrought, for his attempts seemed to him nothing better than those of a child. Again and again he carved, and he had to change his purpose and cut away what he had carved. For the thing he had wrought would not conform itself to the image he had of it, and it seemed he made no progress in the task that was set him. But he did not know that it was because his thoughts had wandered so often and were not focused enough at times to give strength and skill to his hand, as well as that the idea of what he must carve seemed too good for his hand to follow. And one night he wrought hard by the glimmer of his wretched lamp until, overwearied, he fell fast asleep and slept like one dead. And when he awoke, a man of light, lovely and grand, stood where he had so wearily carved the unresponsive stone. He rose and drew nigh, and behold, it was an opening in the wall through which his freedom shone. The man of light was the door into the universe, and with a shout of joy he darted through the wall into the light. So far for the story itself. Let us now look at the symbolism, but please understand that we can only give a short and concise account. And if you would like to receive the story, to reread it, please leave us your email address and we'll send it on to you. The symbolism. It all starts out with an orphaned boy, and to jump right into the story, everyone can be termed an orphan who feels himself a stranger in this world and abhors the survival of the fittest society. He or she is, as it were, estranged from the cosmic father mother force that gives sustenance to the soul. So, possibly, this is your story. The orphan boy lives in the house of a sage, of a wise man. And this, our earthly abode, you might say the house of humanity, for all its faults and shortcomings, is also the realm of high significance and wisdom for the human life wave. It is, as you might say, a training territory for the way back into eternity. The earth that we now live on is dualistic, which is to say that every development and all movements happen in pairs of opposites, night and day, man and woman, breathing in and out, good and bad, and ultimately life and death. Which means, in essence, that nothing here on earth has any permanence. It comes into being only to vanish again after some time. And this goes for individuals as well as for whole civilizations. The only thing we gain from this rising, shining, and feigning situation are our experiences. And the ultimate experience is that the essence of man, the essence within you, does not belong here on earth. For the boy, it is the middle of the night. He has grasped the futility of such a dialectic life, and this realization feels like the night for him, the night for his soul, for the soul is nourished by light. And you might say he awakens to his situation of prodigal son. He awakens to the bitter reality that on this earth, a state of well being, of happiness, of prosperity for all beings is just not a possible reality. It wasn't in the past ages, and it will, alas, not be so in the future. So he sets out to search for a place where he may find a solution for this situation. He becomes, you might say, a seeker. He goes on a quest. And so he finds an open door, a door he has never yet found unlocked. For such a seeker is guided to an open door. Guided by whom? I'll tell you a little known fact. Not all of the human life wave fell from its cosmic domain in ancient times. Part of it did not deviate from the plan of God and remained there to work in harmony with the divine laws and plans. And it is they who monitor fallen humanity and who lead seekers to places where they can be guided, instructed. For instance, to an initiation school like the School of the Golden Rosy Cross. Instructed about the path back to the cosmic domain, which in the story is represented by the mother, whom the prisoner so pityingly cries out for. And in the story, these non-fallen entities are represented by the voice that tells him what to do and what to discard. And it is an important discovery for the seeker that he actually is a prisoner, and that, moreover, his prison is self-made. And like the Grail story hangs on the question that Parsifal must ask, but first didn't. Why is the king ill? Why is the king inside me ill? Just so, the seeker cannot progress until he asks the essential question that the prisoner asks of the voice: what am I to do? My burden is intolerable, unbearable. And the answer is, of course, obvious. Clean your prison, clean your system, clean your microcosm. And so, ultimately, nullify your karma, which binds you to this earth. In other words, throw out the dead mice. That is, all the ballast you have collected in many, many incarnations. And in this way, the soul energy in your system will be raised. It will be raised to such an extent that a window is opened into another world. And the spirit energy from this other world, this divine world, in the shape of a dove, comes out to meet him. Some part of him, the ego part, of course wants to hold on to something so precious. But it is clear that such a spirit, such an energy, cannot be possessed. And only when a prisoner realizes this and sets it free will it come back and be his constant companion. But he is still imprisoned within the walls of this world. So he receives a new assignment. Polish your irons until they glitter with brightness. And this task signifies the daily spiritual work of guarding your thoughts, your feelings, and your deeds, to keep them as pure as possible. For that way, the energy, the vibration of the system is raised. It is what Buddha called the middle way and the Eightfold Path. It is the 12 labors of Hercules that he has to undertake to free himself of his overlord. So the man sets out to undertake the task of shaping a new soul. In the story, it is the part where he carves out the figure of a man in the wall, as perfect as he can make it. And for the seeker, it means a path with many hurdles and assignments, often 5 steps forwards and 3 backwards. It means finding out on the path what works and what doesn't. It means dealing with your karmic influences. It means nullifying all the egoic obsession with an unsatisfactory past, with others, with a perhaps glorious future if you work hard enough on it. It means living in the here and now and daily doing the spiritual work. There can be no salvation or enlightenment in this world. And when this truth hits you, you are either one step away from depression or one step away from the path of initiation, of salvation, of freedom. And having accomplished this true task as a human being on earth, that is, to carve out a new soul being within himself, he sees the gate to the universe open before him. His future, a light being. And with a shout of joy, he leaps through the wall into the realm of light. Well, the final issue now is, what does all this signify? What could it mean for me? The School of the Golden Rosy Cross is an initiation school, a spiritual school for those who wonder, is this world, is this life all there is for me? How is it that even if I have everything I need, I still feel restless and inwardly dissatisfied? What can I do for humanity, for the world, on a basic level to alleviate all the hurt and the pain? Is there a solution for this on an elementary level? Is there a key, a method to open my spiritual potential? For I feel that I have more within me. Yes, my friends, there is indeed a solution. There is a way out. And I may tell you, from my own experience of 50 years, it is a wonderful inner journey, a path from ego to soul to spirit being. And be assured, if you feel you are a seeker, what you seek seeks you also. So it may not be wholly accidental that you linked into our talk today. And for those seekers, the School of the Golden Rosy Cross has been founded. And if you feel that you are ready to take the next step in your spiritual development, we invite you to make yourself known to us so that we may further acquaint you with the program of the Rosy Cross and the step-by-step development of your soul and ultimately its connection with the Spirit. There is no need to travel anywhere. The greatest journey is within yourself. Why talk of miracles and treasures when they wait to be discovered within yourself? And do not say impossible, for nothing is impossible for the soul within you. Thank you for your attention.